Tips for preventing heart disease. Death in the United States is primarily caused by heart disease. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, around 659,000 fatalities annually are caused by cardiovascular disease, CDC. When discussing heart disease prevention, cardiologists typically use one of three terms: secondary prevention, primary prevention, or primordial prevention. There are commonalities among the three, but their onsets and outcomes are distinct. Secondary prevention. A heart attack, stroke, angioplasty, bypass surgery, or the diagnosis of some other sort of cardiovascular disease all trigger such efforts. Methods include taking aspirin and/or a statin to decrease cholesterol, cutting off tobacco use and shedding excess pounds if necessary, increasing physical activity, and eating a heart-healthy diet. Though it may sound like closing the barn door after the horse has gone, secondary prevention is actually quite effective. These measures can reduce the risk of a second cardiovascular event, such as a heart attack or stroke, as well as slow the worsening of any existing heart disease. Second heart attacks are the leading cause of death for people who have survived a previous one. Primary prevention. Primary prevention of cardiovascular disease tries to protect at-risk individuals from suffering their first cardiovascular event, such as a heart attack or stroke, requiring angioplasty or surgery, or developing cardiovascular disease in the first place. People who have already developed cardiovascular risk factors, such as high blood pressure or high cholesterol, are typically the focus of primary prevention efforts. Primary prevention, like secondary prevention, focuses on minimizing these dangers through measures such as modifying one's way of life to be more healthful and, if necessary, using medicine. However, the presence of alarming cardiovascular risk markers indicates the presence of inflammation, atherosclerosis, and/or endothelial dysfunction, all of which are irreversible once they have begun. Primordial refers to something that has always been around. Primordial prevention entails trying to stop risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and obesity from developing in the first place, which would in turn stop cardiovascular events from happening. American Heart Association attempts to define and promote optimal heart health center on what was formerly a taboo topic: primary prevention. Primordial prevention, which aims to protect against cardiovascular disease, is most effective the earlier it is implemented, from a young age forward. Steps for the primordial prevention of heart disease. By making the following 5 changes to your daily routine, you can greatly minimize your risk of developing cardiovascular risk factors and, eventually, heart disease. 1. Not smoking. In order to improve your health, you should avoid using any kind of tobacco product. Quitting smoking is easier said than done, but doing so is essential if you want to avoid the negative effects of this destructive and short-lived habit. The risk of cardiovascular disease is one method in which this occurs. About 64% of deaths among current smokers and 28% of deaths among past smokers were attributed to cigarette smoking. According to studies investigating the association between smoking and smoking cessation on mortality over a decades-long prospective study of more than 100,000 women. Furthermore, this research suggested that ex-smokers may see a dramatic reduction in their overall risk of developing certain diseases. 20 years after quitting, a person's extra risk for all-cause mortality, i.e., death from any cause, is equivalent to that of a never smoker. Nicotine, which is delivered by tobacco products, is highly addictive. Given this, quitting smoking is one of the most challenging health goals to achieve. 2. Maintaining a healthy weight. Heart disease is just one of many health issues made worse by being overweight or having a wide waist circumference. Body mass index, BMI, was found to be a significant risk factor for coronary heart disease in a research of more than 1 million female participants. Coronary heart disease rates rise proportionally with body mass index. Middle-aged women and men who gained 11 to 22 pounds after the age of 20 were up to 3 times more likely to develop heart disease. High blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and gallstones than those who gained 5 pounds or fewer in the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study. Those who put on more than 22 pounds were at even higher risk for these illnesses. Body mass index and stature are correlated. People of greater stature tend to carry more mass. Thus, scientists have developed a number of scales that take both height and weight into account. The body mass index, BMI, is determined by dividing a person's weight in kilograms by the square of their height in meters. The use of a body mass index, BMI, chart or calculator can also be helpful. The size of one's waist is also significant. Waist circumference may serve as a more reliable indicator of future health problems in normal weight adults than body mass index does. 12. These helpful criteria were determined by an expert team formed by the National Institutes of Health. Men should keep their waist circumference under 40 inches, 102 centimeters, while women should keep theirs under 35 inches, 89 centimeters, 88 centimeters. 3. Exercising. Many of us become less active as we age, despite the fact that exercise and physical activity are good strategies to avoid heart disease and many other diseases and ailments. Among the finest ways to take care of yourself is to engage in regular physical activity. The risk of developing cardiovascular disease, diabetes, stroke, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, and some malignancies is reduced. In addition, it helps people sleep better, maintain a healthy weight, feel better emotionally, and think more clearly as they age. Real health benefits can be achieved without training for a marathon. Most people will reap significant benefits by walking rapidly for 30 minutes 5 times per week. There is no such thing as too much exercise. While engaging in regular exercise and other forms of physical activity has many health benefits, leading a sedentary lifestyle increases the risk of obesity and other chronic diseases. Studies have shown that sedentary lifestyles, such as spending long periods of time sitting at a desk or in a car, increase the risk of premature death compared to more active lifestyles. There was no correlation between the amount of time spent sitting and the risk of cardiovascular disease in a research of women aged 50 to 79 who were free of cardiovascular disease at the start of the trial. 4. Following a healthy diet. Cholesterol, particularly foods high in dietary cholesterol, including eggs, dietary fats, and individual vitamins and minerals, were the primary focus of studies investigating the links between diet and cardiovascular disease for many years. This investigation has yielded useful information. Nevertheless, it has also produced a number of false leads and contributed to widespread misunderstandings about what exactly constitutes a heart-healthy diet. Reason being, humans consume food rather than nutrition. Heart disease can be avoided by eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, fish, poultry, and vegetable oils, drinking alcohol in moderation, if at all, and avoiding or limiting intake of red and processed meats, refined carbohydrates, foods and beverages with added sugar, sodium, and trans fats. Heart disease risk was reduced by 31%, diabetes risk was reduced by 33%, and stroke risk was reduced by 20% in people whose diets were consistent with this pattern. Patients with cardiovascular disease who followed a Mediterranean diet with the addition of extra virgin olive oil or nuts, both of which are high in unsaturated fat, had a lower rate of major cardiovascular events during a 4.8-year period. Incorporating good fats, like those found in the Mediterranean diet, can enhance heart health and led to weight loss, as was shown in this study. Although there is no single, definitive definition of the Mediterranean diet, it does take into account the wide variety of cuisines, eating habits, and lifestyles practiced in the many nations that border the Mediterranean Sea. But there are commonalities that constitute a Mediterranean diet, such as a preference for olive oil, nuts, vegetables, fruits, and cereals, a moderate consumption of fish and poultry, a limited consumption of red meat, processed meats, and sweets, and a modest consumption of wine with meals. The results also demonstrated that these healthy eating behaviors were statistically significantly associated with lower risk of both coronary heart disease and stroke. A good balance of sodium and potassium is essential for maintaining normal blood pressure and a functional cardiovascular system. Some studies have found that eating a diet lower in salt and higher in potassium can dramatically reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. Fruits, vegetables, legumes, and low-fat dairy are particularly rich sources of potassium. However, it can be found in many other foods as well. However, consuming high amounts of sodium through processed breads, packaged snacks, canned products, and fast food meals while restricting potassium intake has been linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. 5. Improving sleep health. According to studies, getting enough sleep is crucial for maintaining cardiovascular health. Both insufficient and excessive sleep durations have been linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and can have a multiplicative effect on other known cardiovascular risk factors such as diet, exercise, body mass index, blood pressure, and inflammation. A lack of quality sleep can be brought on by a number of factors, such as clinical sleep disorders, working nighttime shifts, or just not practicing good sleep hygiene. If you're having trouble sleeping or just don't feel refreshed during the day, it's important to discuss this with your doctor. Adjusting one's sleeping patterns can help. Some of these include avoiding heavy meals, coffee, and alcohol several hours before night, exercising regularly, avoiding electronic gadgets an hour before bed, and establishing a regular sleep routine and sticking to it. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel.